Cool. And now we're going to show you, or we are, like I'm multiple personalities. I am going to show you, me, Keegan, singular person. I'm going to show you how to basically set up a simple and then progressively complex worship set in the arrangement view. So before we were looking at the session view, which is as thus. Remember, I showed you already preferences. Just make sure that's all selected properly. 44, da-da-da-da-da. We know what's up. Cool. And then now, instead of the session view, by the way, you can toggle between those by pressing tab. Session view, arrangement view. Session view, arrangement view. Session view is predicated on the basis of scenes. Arrangement view is more like a huge view, like a long, open view of the entire show, which helps. It's more complicated, but it helps if you want a bit more micro control over certain elements. So now I'm going to show you very simply to start with. Let's make sure. To start with, basically, whenever you're using arrangement, you want to have a few things in place. You want to set your key assignment. So metronome, I always set to that, to M. And then set. This is for setting markers. You see, as soon as I click that, it set your marker. The markers will be, you'll see it'll be very important. It sets basically, you can divide songs into sections. You can divide a lot of different things using the markers. So you want to basically create a key assignment for that. I usually do it in lowercase s. And then while you're doing that, lowercase s for set markers. These two arrows control marker left and marker right. So basically what you'll see how I kind of activate or execute it live. But marker left, I want you to select the left arrow on your keyboard. It's left arrow, but if you press shift and that, it's technically the comma. You see the comma pops up there. And then for the right arrow, you want to select the right arrow, which is really the period there. So unless it's shifted, which becomes the arrows, it's comma. And so left arrow is comma. Right arrow here, right marker is the period. So watch just quickly. I'll set a marker, press S, and by pressing the left and right, I can just toggle back between. That becomes helpful eventually, as you'll see. So I want to make sure, press M, make sure the metronome is active. And let's just, for argument's sake, say the first song will be Glorious. We all love that one. Basically, what you want to do is you want to set your marker by pressing S. Then you can right-click and then rename. And basically what you're going to do is we're going to set up as well. I'm just showing you a simple way to set up the worship set. But we can set up pads. And you can set up loops to start with. And the way to kind of create a simple worship set from here on is basically you have your first song, and you can key assign that to be song number 1. Okay? So you press play, depending on how fast that one's. So to set the tempo in here, you want to right-click the tempo at the top, show automation, and then this pops up. I'll show you. So now this is very important, how to create tempo differentiation in arrangement view. So by double-clicking that and press show tempo, the tempo shows up here. The way it works is the bottom and the top of this are your ranges. And this is the bottom range, this is the top range. If I say I'm at 120, and I know the BPM for Glorious is, say, 146, I believe it is. You want to put that as the top, and what you do is you just kind of go close to it, it selects it, and then you drag it upwards, okay? So that means, right? That's the 4/4 click for Glorious. I don't like 4/4, especially for a speed like that, so that's a perfect speed for that. Remember what we did with pads before? You double-click it. You get the heading going, drop audio effects here. Go to audio effects, reverb. Again, in the later Ableton versions, this might be different, but you just want to get some kind of reverb that'll hold it over. And because of Glorious, unless I'm using a track for it, I usually want to use a worship pads. Again, you can create a worship pads folder within your user library and different folders even for loops and stuff like that. But I'll use this for worship pads. Let's just do bright for the argument's sake. Let's see, I was doing it in C. They usually do it in C. Double click it, see how big the WAV file is. You want to make sure you'll get used to seeing the WAV file approximately this, just because it comes in really loud. Hear that? See, I lowered it right down, and it's still pretty loud coming through. So, especially if you go to different keys in the song, or you have different chords outside of the key in the song, or key changes, that's when you wouldn't use pads. But Glorious is pretty okay. It doesn't have a lot of changes outside of the key, so having a pad is fine. But the problem is when you bring in a pad like this, it goes really long. So you want to cut it off, and how you know how long it needs to be, you can basically highlight. And then basically, if you look at the bottom here, it cups off. But watch at the bottom here. When I'm holding on to highlighting something, like a holding down and clicking and dragging, you see the duration pop up at the bottom of the screen there. Approximately, I just usually time it out to about 5 minutes, depending on the song. 5 to 6 minutes is usually enough time for any kind of particular song. And then that's good. And basically, then you set the next one in place. So basically, the pad and the click will be playing for Glorious. And again, because we already set that reverb thing in place, when I press stop, it'll fade off nicely. And you create enough space between those two. Sometimes you can create it close enough so that it goes right into it, but unless you have a very specific arrangement, you don't know how long that's going to be, and so you don't want the next click to come in too early. So you set that up to go. Again, depending on what the next song is, we'll do Soli Deo Gloria. All right, so we know this one. I believe it's 144. So if you're going to a lower BPM now, set the lower range to 144. Create a new node. These are nodes, automation nodes. This applies to a bunch of different things in Ableton, but specifically it's applying to tempo right now. If you had volume, it would apply to the same thing. Reverb levels, same thing. So we have tempo. Select that, drag it down, because I've already set my lower marker. The bottom of this is going to be 44. You understand? So basically, the top of this is 146, so that there's no guessing. I'm not like, 145. Ah, crikey, you know? As long as it's at the top. Oh, Josh Clow, what are you doing? Bye-bye. As long as it's at the top, 146, then I know that's going to be, I can drag that to 146 to be Glorious. And if it's 144 at the bottom, I know I can drag this to be 144 very accurately. You can also kind of move stuff around, like especially on the horizontal axis. So if you just drag it, it kind of jumps between the nodes depending on how zoomed in you are. But if you're dragging and you're holding command on the Mac, I don't know what it is on the Windows. Sorry, get a Mac. Basically, it'll drag like so, and yeah, so you'll have a bit more specificity to drag to different places if you want to do like a fade in or something like that. Usually, it's a pretty hard line how you want that tempo. Moving on to Soli Deo Gloria again, like I was saying. You throw a pad in there. F. That was the key I'm talking about. Pull that back. All right, let's see how we're good to go. Yeah, it's pretty good. 1, 2, 3, and... Exactly. So this is, again, a simple version of how to create a simple worship set. When I say simple, I mean without tracks. So again, you can just double check at the bottom there. You see the duration. Make sure that's generally about 5 minutes. That's a good rule. Unless it's a slower song and you know you're going to be maybe rotate it, like looping the end or tagging the end and stuff like that. So again, numbers, you want to make sure that's number 2. So that basically, if for some reason you stop in the middle here, or in practice you need to kind of toggle between songs, you can do that. Some people get really specific, as if there was tracks here, and go like, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and S. And by the way, you can do that while it's running. You can kind of select stuff, set markers for specific segments of the song while it's running. That's a helpful tool. But some people get really specific, say intro, and then they'll go on from there the whole song. But I think that's too detailed for this kind of approach, this level of creating a set in Ableton. Just be simple. All right, let's go to song number 3. Let's just assume that we're doing something like Great Are You, Lord. Why did I choose that? Because it's in 6/8. So the way to change the time signature is you right-click right above the arrow here, right above the marker in this little domain here. Okay, see that pops up. Insert time signature 6/8. There we go. Okay, that's assuming though you want to make sure as well that see that usually pops up at the beginning too if it's not there already. 4/8, and then 6/8, and then you have. That sounds weird only because it's at 144 BPM. When you lower it back down to like say 70, I'm going to lower my markers, my tempo range down to 70. Pull that down here. There we go. And obviously all that's left to do is throw a pad in there. Pad. And that'll be in, you know, that song is usually in what, like G or something. And I'll use like the organic pad. That's the thing too. You want different kinds of pads, depending on the kind of songs that you're doing. You know, like change them up. It's a very small measure, ignorable, negligent measure of creativity, but it is something. You know, different pads fit different songs better. So again, slow song, maybe closer to 6. You see the bottom duration. Maybe have that closer to 6. So I'll pull that out here. There we go. We're good to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Intro. That's Great Are You, Lord. And so sometimes what happens at the end of the song, when it's just them, sometimes it's just them singing no drums and they get off the click, or maybe the worship leader doesn't want to click and kind of slows it down, or you want a bit more freedom without the click. So what you can do is just press M. That's why we set M. So also we can just pull it out. So you can just kind of vibe on that at the end. Just, you know, those moments at the end of a song. And the pad is still there. If I pull out the keyboard, see the pad is still underneath. And then when I pull it off, nice slow fade out. So yeah, that's pretty much now just quickly to show you how you would integrate loops in there. Again, it's nothing different. Let's just see if we can find a loop quickly that would fit into that. Loop, pool, loop, official. Where are you at? There we go. So always have some people actually put it inside their user library. Just for the sake of it, let's just throw a Roro loop in there under, so this loop I usually use for Our God Reigns. The guys already know this. But make sure, double check it, make sure it's warped. Make sure the original BPM is right on there, which is 132 BPM, 132. And generally speaking, wave files work better in this context, because what happens is you want to make sure it's actually ending right at 4 bars or whatever, how many bars you want it to end at. I usually do that. So basically, that's how I do it. Just kind of copy and paste, especially when it's smaller loops. Copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. It's kind of annoying on this kind of sheet. That's why for this arrangement window, essentially what you want to, like, you want to only use it for tracks, but I'm just showing you just in case you want to use it for like simpler sets like this. All right, so basically the way that'll work is, right, glorious, 2, 1, 2, 3, and again, you can just listen to the sound. Sometimes it's way too loud. You can just look at the waveform and see that that's way too loud compared to even just the tracks, right? Highlight all those, and you can bring those down. And what you can even do, if you want to, if you're kind of copying, pasting that kind of stuff all over, just select the first one, hold shift, select the last one, all of them get highlighted, and then right click, and then press consolidate. And what consolidating does is it makes all those into one file. Kind of makes it easier to manage if you're, you know, looking for that kind of option available to you. So that'll make it into one file, just like the track, the pad right above it. But yeah, so that's basically how to create, a simple just click, pad, loop, worship set. And once again, just to reiterate the routing point, this in session view, I showed you this, the routing in session view. Click and masters. You can change it here, but when you're in arrangement view, same thing applies. This is still Q or click. So hit that to 1. This will be the master. So you make that 3/4. Now the pads will be coming through master, as you can see here, but you want to make sure the loops is external out coming through number 2. So again, 1 is click, 2 is loops, percussion, rhythmic stuff. 3, 4 stereo is anything melodic, any kind of tracks or pads. So again, if I can show you or hear, if you hear what I'm hearing, the way I have it panned in the Klang in-ear system here, click would be on the left, loops would be coming kind of right, and there'd be stereo pads in the background. That's it for that. You obviously gotta make sure you save those. Let's say December 36th, 2021, and make sure that's under Sundays. If you don't save it, it'll save under the December 35th project. Cool, and that's that, and you're good to go. And obviously make sure that 1, 2, and then you can select the third one as a 3. That's just an easy way of navigating through all that kind of stuff. Great.